governments won. With or without the opposition call for a recount in the capital, Ankara, Reçep Tayyip Erdogan's AK party increased its share of the vote over the last municipal election in 2009 to more than 45%, despite a graft scandal, infighting among Islamists, and a fiery response that had Prime Minister Reçep Tayyip Erdogan ridiculed for trying to shut down Twitter and YouTube. The AKP winning. Erdogan's on course now, perhaps, to run for president in August. Joining us, editor-in-chief of partner newspaper Hurriyet Daily News, Murat Yetkin. Thanks so much for being with us. The race in Ankara, we know it was tight, but in Istanbul, where you live, it wasn't even close.
No, the gap in Istanbul actually increased between the incumbent mayor and the very ambitious candidate for the opposition, Mustafa Sarıgül. But Ankara, the race is very close, and actually it's still going on in a very rare occasion. Now we have the vote count on the second day, and it seems it's going to continue because the complaints of opposition is going on because of irregularity claims.
How do you explain the fact that in the end Erdogan did so well?
The supporters of Erdogan seemingly do not want to hear anything bad about him. They defied all allegations, saying that their priority is to have him going on as the prime minister of the country. Well, this was not actually general elections, it's local. But it was Erdogan himself who turned this into a sort of a general election in which his level of support was tested, and he succeeded that test. It seems that all the graft allegations, the corruption, the ban over the freedom of expression, media, did not had any destructive effect in the support of Erdogan votes. His supporters gave him another credit.
All right. So, in other words, an us v them strategy that paid off.
Yeah, Erdogan has a very magical recipe for success. He has proven this in the last 12 years many times. That recipe is a very simple one, actually. It is antagonism. Before every election, Erdogan very successfully, very masterfully finds an issue of antagonism, works on that, and structures all his election campaign on that issue. This time, it was the conflict with Gülenists. He managed Gülenists, meaning this followers of Fethullah Gülen, the moderate Islamist scholar living in the United States, actually his former ally. But because of this graft probe, Erdogan managed to turn the picture upside down and said that it was a coup attempt against himself by Gülenists through their followers in judiciary and police force. So managed to tell his supporters that there is no corruption allegation at all. It was just an excuse for this Gülenists to stage a plot against him, and it succeeded. Before, in the former election, it was the military. In the former election, it was the education state system. So this time it was Gülenists, and he successfully implemented his recipe of antagonism once again.
You mentioned the Gülenists. We can listen now to Reçep Tayyip Erdogan. Sunday evening, the Prime Minister fired up and throwing down the gauntlet to supporters of that US-based cleric.
We will not surrender to Pennsylvania and their offshoots in Turkey. From tomorrow, there may be some who flee. There are some who have already fled. I have personally filed legal complaints against some of them. I warned that they might flee. We will enter their lair. They will pay for this. They will pay the price.
They will pay the price. What does he mean?
There are signs for that. Erdogan repeatedly said during his election campaign that there will be court cases against Gülenists within the government system, within the judiciary system. We might see some court cases. We might see some probes and operations. There are some information in the corridors of political circles that even the accusations may go far as espionage, spying against the government, especially on this very last case of tapping a secret meeting in foreign ministry on the situation in Syria. Erdogan is very keen on that. He repeated that in his speech last night, the victory speech last night, that he is not going to forgive that, and Erdogan sees that as an espionage act against government, and he accuses of Gülenists.
And what will be the consequences for, I guess, politics in Turkey?
He's determined to clear the influence of Gülenists from government agencies and judiciary. The effect, you asked, the election proved that, or showed us that the influence of Gülenists were actually not as much as they pretend. Because what we were hearing from Gülenists is that their effect on elections, this damaging effect on the government performance could be much higher. But we have seen that despite all the opposition rhetoric, despite all the opposition activities, plus the Gülenists' activity, especially in social media and regular media, or the influence was only 5% to Erdogan. It costed only 5% to Erdogan.
Murat, you wrote an opinion piece this morning in Hurriyet where you said half the corruption claims in any other democratic country would be enough to collapse the government. In Turkey, it cost only a 5-point drop in support for Prime Minister Erdogan. And you point to the fact that Erdogan has been much cannier than the opposition in courting, for instance, the Kurdish vote.
Well, that's right. That's another factor. Opposition actually performed not badly in this case, in this election, but they criticized Erdogan. They structured their campaign on criticizing Erdogan, but they didn't tell much about what to replace instead. That's one point. The other point is that both the main opposition, Republican People's Party, and the second biggest opposition party, Nationalist Movement Party, they cannot get any votes from the heavily Kurdish populated provinces. That's big disadvantage for them. So Erdogan managed to enter the election in all 81 provinces. But for example, the competition power for CHP or MHP is limited to, say, 50-55 provinces.
Which begs the question then, Murat, which begs the question, in the build-up to these elections, there were a lot of pundits saying this is the beginning of the end for Erdogan. On the basis of what you've just said now, can we say it's Erdogan forever?
Nothing is forever. We have a saying in Turkish that the world was not forever even for the Prophet Suleiman. So nothing is forever. But through democratic means, now Erdogan managed to test its power once again.
All right. I want to thank you very much, Murat Yetkin, Editor-in-Chief of Hurriyet Daily News, for joining us there from Istanbul. Stay with us. We'll have much more on this story and more coming up at the bottom of the hour here on France 24.